Hello, welcome to this PMP exam study. Just wanted to point out to you that the PMP Examination Specification, which is this book over here, is available on PMI's website. It's not downloadable, but you can actually read it online if you are a member of the PMI. So what you want to do is go to that website, go to that link that I have up there, books247.com, and all the other information right there. Type that in. Go straight to this page, and if you are taking the exam, I strongly advise you to read this book. Now, why do I advise you to read this book? Because the PMP exam is based on this specification. It's based on these requirements that the PMI expects you to be able to meet if you are taking the exam. What this book does is it breaks down the different tasks, the different aspects of the PMBOK guide that the PMI expects you to know for the exam. It lists out the process groups and subcomponents under the process groups that you are expected to know. It calls these process groups domains in this book. So all that means is this is a process group. It's the initiating process group. On the exam, it's referred to as a domain. You probably remember that the exam is broken down into the different process groups, so we've got different percentages for each process group or domain. What you need to do is read this book, know the information in it, and be able to solve problems, real-world problems that correlate to what is listed. For example, this is the initiating process group. You are expected to be able to do this. Conduct project selection methods. For example, cost-benefit analysis, selection criteria. Remember we talked about net present value, internal rate of return, and all that stuff in class? Well, they expect you to know that, right? Customer needs and expectations. Organization's internal goals. You're supposed to have knowledge of this. So in other words, you are supposed to be able to analyze which projects are valuable and which projects are not. So NPV, IRR, benefit cost ratio, all that stuff we talked about. You are expected to know for the exam. So task 2, define the scope of the project based on the business needs. What are we talking about here? We're really talking about the project charter. To be able to define the scope of the project, right? To be able to define the customer needs, stakeholder expectations, and all that. So we're really in initiating. It's really a mix of the project charter and identify stakeholders. That is what you are expected to do. Task 3, document high-level risks, assumptions, and constraints. Of course you know they're talking about the project charter, right? So all of this is done in initiating. I advise you to go through all of the process groups, all of the domains. Let's go to the next one. This is planning. 23% of the exam is from the planning process group. You are expected to be able to do all of the tasks listed. Here's another one. We're talking about scope management here. So we're going to take the project charter, we're going to put it into the right process, we're going to come out with a requirement, we're going to come out with the project scope statement, the WBS, and so on. Right? And this is planning, so it lists out all of the things that you are expected to be able to do. Same thing for executing. You are expected to be able to execute the tasks defined in the project management plan in order to achieve the project goals. So you're meant to have knowledge of the project management plan, the statement of work, and all these things listed here. So in other words, if you're taking the exam and you cannot perform any of these tasks, go back to the PMBOK guide, find out where these particular tasks are done in the processes, in the 42 processes, and make sure that you can do them. Here's monitoring and controlling. Earn value, right? We use earned value to track projects. CPM, the critical path method, PERT, and all this stuff. Performance measuring and tracking techniques. You are expected to be able to do this. Okay? Time management, conflict resolution, all the things that you do when you are tracking a project. Finally, closing the project. Project scope, knowledge of project scope, deliverables, acceptance criteria, and all that. Of course you need this knowledge to be able to effectively close the project. If you don't know the project scope, how on earth are you going to close the project effectively? So all these are no-brainers to many of you, I know. Lots of people pass the exam without this information, but this information is key in how the exam is set up. You're not going to have questions in this order, and that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is these are the tasks that you need to be able to perform in the real world, right, if you're going to do well on the exam.